Welcome back in time with the BassMaster magazines. We're actually on February 1980. I didn't do January because I didn't really see anything in there I wanted to share. I want you also to see my new studio here. I've never been into this kind of stuff, but when I'm in here and I feel the energy of it, then I really can see the relevance and the importance of it. And it is literally going back in time 50 years. And it's kind of a strange feeling, but a good feeling. Again, we're going to do February 1980. And this is really the Classic magazine for 1979. As y'all kind of learned, the Classics are still being held in the fall of the year before, and they don't really get to report it until the early part of the year of 1980. This Classic was kind of important because it was a Classic at Texoma in Texas that Hank Parker won. And but what really one of the most significant things about it to me was that it was the first time, quote, all the national media showed up. Most of the time we had the smaller towns and outdoor riders and things like that, but this one, Washington showed up, New York City papers showed up, Chicago and Los Angeles. And the reason was that George Bush was running for office. And Ray had invited him to a press conference before the tournament started at that Classic. And it was my first awkward introduction to the national media and who they thought they were and who I guess they are. But Ray always had a deal on the back of my shirt. You know, I remember the very first one was "Don't mess with Texas, please recycle." And then this year though, I have one with "The future is ours." And Ray got up there in the press conference and said, "Hey Rick, I'd like for you to get up here and explain to everybody why I never see you get negative even when you are not doing well. And how come you have such a positive attitude?" And so naturally I got up there and like I said, being naive to the world in a lot of ways, I said, "Well, Ray, you know, the main thing I don't do, I don't watch the news, whether it's TV." And I said, "I don't read newspapers unless it's the cartoons or the sports page." And I said, because, you know, there's enough negativity out there, and that seems to be what all they want to tell you about, just the negative things going on. And I know there's negative things going on. I realize that. But at the same time, I think we need, you know, a positive influence out there, and why don't we at least try to balance it out? Well, after that press conference, I got cornered outside the little meeting room we were in by every one of those big name writers from those papers. And Gene Mueller was the one that was representing them. And he was from the Washington Herald, a Washington paper. And he said, "Rick, you know, what you said up there wasn't very smart." And he said, "You know, if you ever," and he got really threatening. He said, "If you ever say something like that again, you'll never get another piece of ink in the United States ever again." And I go, "Well, did I say anything that wasn't true?" And he thought for a minute, he said, "No, but that's the way we sell papers." I said, "All I was trying to do is, why can't you balance it out between positive and negative? Does it all have to be negative?" And anyway, so I kind of walked off, you know, not knowing what my future was when it came to newspapers. And that didn't really change. Gene and I actually became pretty close friends after that. In fact, he had been to a couple of Classics before this one, so it wasn't like it was his first pony show. But anyway, so this was the Classic at Texoma. In 4 years, it was my fourth Classic. I'd won. The lowest place I have been in the last 4 years in the Classic was this one. It was third. I'd won 2 of them, and I was second in the other one, and now I was third in this one. So I had a little bit of a string going, even though I wasn't necessarily winning them all. And so let's go through and see what else. I'm going to talk more about the Classic there. But here was another thing that was going on back then. And it's just one of those male, you know, pissing contest about what's the most important and what's not. And there was this argument going on between Roland and Bill Dance and me and Tommy Martin and Jack Haynes. We were all these young classic winners that really had won classics and we hadn't been on the circuit that long. Which seems still to be a theme in the classics, if you notice. So there is a reason for that, and I really studied that reason. But anyway, back then, Roland kept saying, the Angler of the Year is the most important, and he even challenged, okay, you and I forget who else he challenged, and Jimmy Houston was on Roland's side, and Bill Dance was. It's the most important award in bass fishing, and I said, no, it's not. I said, hey, number one, how much money did you get this with winning the Angler of the Year? Well, I got $1,000. I said, well, yeah.
That's terrible.
And I got $25,000 for winning the Classic. So monetarily wise, I said, there's no argument. And I said, but here's my real reason for it, is that the Classic truly represents the individual's ability. Angler of the Year does not. To win Angler of the Year, to beat you guys Angler of the Year, I don't have to just beat y'all. I've got to beat every friend you have on those lakes, because y'all get all the information you can possibly get. And y'all know it. It wasn't breaking the rules. I want to emphasize that. I said, but every one of those tournaments, I'm fishing against you and all your buddies. The Classic, I'm just fishing against you. And so that was truly, in my mind, representing my ability against yours.
So
and
was this a time frame when you knew where the Classic was ahead of time, or was it still a secret?
It just had started to turn back to, they were starting to announce it ahead of time. Okay. So obviously that advantage of them not knowing, couldn't get help because they didn't know, was changing and had to change it. I would have loved it if it hadn't, because I knew I could dominate it when they had to fish it without help. But now Angler of the Year is different. They're in the sense that the information rules are so much tougher than they were back then. Back then you could almost fish with a guide up to the day this tournament started. Nowadays, it's hard to get. They don't get as much information. Even Angler of the Year, they have to do more of it on their own. So we're not talking about now. We're talking about back then, which I thought was the most valuable. Billy Murray and I both, Ronan had bet us, I'll bet y'all $1,000. We'll just go out after this is over, me and you, and we'll see who wins just between the three of us. No, I didn't take him up on it. I had a lot of respect for Roland, still do. Roland could do it either way. Really, he could. He was that good. He could have done it without help, or he could do it, but he got all the help he could get. He did it both ways. Not all these guys could do it that way, like he was. So I still had tremendous, and still do, tremendous amount of respect for him. Basically, Roland kept saying it was luck. When you win these guys I don't even know are winning the Classic. It's luck. And I basically just said, well, Roland, I'm pretty dang lucky, aren't I? I said, I've won two, I almost won third in a row, and I almost won this one, So, and it wasn't heated in any way. But all of us sincerely believed what we were saying. And again, the all-time money winner, I'd already moved up to second. I hadn't even been on the circuit but 4 or 5 years behind Roland. But it was the Classic wins. Just like today, if you win one or two Classics, you're going to jump way up in the standing, because the Classic purse is so much bigger than any of the other purses you might be winning. And this, again, was a Classic, which won pretty much by flipping. Hank Parker had kind of patterned himself after, he'd watched D. Thomas and Gary Klein, and I learned a lot of that from them. He picked up the big, long flipping sticks, and it was a very, very tough event, And I think the only reason I ended up third is I think the first day of the tournament I had a 6-pounder on the buzzbait, which you know, just was a huge fish. I think, I forget, I think Basil Bacon was second, and he was a flipper as well. You know, he was flipping and pitching. So it was kind of a neat event from that standpoint. And of course, back then, Ray had Mel Tillis there, country western guys. He always had some type of entertainer there. See, in that classic, it's a 3-day event. I had 9 fish in 3 days. And I was in 3rd place for 23 pounds. Hank had 12 fish in 3 days, and that was a 7-fish limit. So, you know, it was 20, he potentially could have had 21. So it was very, but that's okay. I appreciated the tough events back then. Well, that concludes February 1980.